Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. We are continuing on with Codominance by CurlyStar09. Today we are doing chapters 13 and 14. Chapter 13, The Right Moment. Kirishima shouldn't have kissed Bakugou. Not that he regretted it, quite the contrary. He had a half a mind to go straight home after work and see if he could get away with doing it one more time. Maybe even more than once. It was just so hard to focus on anything he was doing with the fresh memory of Bakugou's lips against his. He needed to get things done if he didn't want to end up staying late at the agency. He had been stuck on the same page of a report from a sidekick he had to review for a good 10 minutes when his office door opened, crashing loudly against the wall. Kirishima looked up to find Tetsu looking at him with a glare. "Hey, bro, how's it? You bring the kid here and you don't tell me?" Tetsu demanded as a greeting, slamming the door behind him. Well, you were on patrol," Kirishima tried as a defense with a nervous smile. "You could have called me. Are we even bros? I think I'm the only one who hasn't met your kid." Tetsu huffed as he crossed his arms. "Uraraka hasn't met him yet, and Momo couldn't make it when everyone else came around, and also not helping," Tetsu told him with a warning tone. "You can come over and meet him soon?" Kirishima offered, trying to hold back a chuckle. Tetsu grumbled, dropping onto a chair across from Kirishima. "I will hold you to that." Tetsu let out a sigh. "Anyway, how's it going with Bakugou? I heard that you two kissed outside before he left. Are you finally together?" He grinned at Kirishima, raising an eyebrow. I did, but we aren't really..." Kirishima started, eyes dropping back to the desk, running a hand through his hair. "I think I'm taking advantage of him. We started this whole thing so no one would ask questions about Akio's sudden appearance, but I can't help myself." "Have you told him?" "Does it look like I've told him?" Kirishima huffed, letting himself sink into his chair. "You've been keeping this secret, which I need to tell you is the worst kept secret in history. For how long?" 10 years, Kirishima mumbled. "Oh, wow, so you're admitting it's been 10 years and not 7. Tetsu seemed impressed. "Shut up. All I'm saying is that having a kid together is a good reason to pretend to be together and all. But if you have feelings for the guy, you may as well give it a try. And if he rejects me, I end up destroying the family that Akio just found," Kirishima responded matter-of-factly. "Bro, you went dark. It's not very manly of me to be using my own child to get close to Katsuki like this." Tetsu stood up, slamming his hands on the desk. "You need to stop all of that right now. Talk to Bakugou. That's honestly your only option." Time passes. The first time Kirishima had tried to talk to Bakugou about his feelings for him was right after Kamino. Kirishima had gone over to Bakugou's house to check up on him. Having been there for study sessions, Mrs. Bakugou didn't question his sudden appearance and welcomed him in with a smile. Bakugou, on the other hand, didn't seem too thrilled to see him. Not really looking at him once he opened the door to his room, but he didn't tell him to leave either. He let him into his room, but he didn't say a word as he went to sit on the floor, avoiding Kirishima's gaze, so Kirishima went to sit next to him, nervously trying to keep some distance between them. "How are you feeling, bro?" Kirishima asked nervously. Bakugou groaned in response, adding a shrug after a couple of beats of silence. "You know you can talk to me, you know?" Kirishima tried. "I'm fucking fine, shitty hair," Bakugou told him through gritted teeth. Kirishima knew that was a lie, but he knew better than to argue. "Well, can I talk to you about some stuff? I've been kind of spiraling lately." He smiled nervously as he scratched the back of his neck. Bakugou shrugged once more. "Whatever." I'm glad you're safe, bro. And there's so much going on right now. Kirishima started, trying to find the words he wanted to say most. The words were at the tip of his tongue as his hand slowly inched its way over to Bakugou's own. "Tell me about it," Bakugou grumbled. "Everything is just fucked up right now." Bakugou's hands turned to fists at his side. Kirishima felt himself hesitate. Maybe this wasn't the best time to tell Bakugou how he felt. Kirishima pulled his hand back into his lap, staring at it, the hand that Bakugou had grabbed to escape from the villains. At least he knew Bakugou thought of him as an equal. Maybe that should be enough for now. Maybe that is all they could be for now. "Did you hear about the dorms?" Kirishima decided to change the topic. "I think it'll be fun, and we would have more time to use the training grounds." Bakugou hummed in agreement, but didn't say much after that. Kirishima was fine with that. He filled the space with his voice, knowing that if Bakugou didn't want him there, he would have been kicked out already. He's not sure how long he talked, but he didn't stop until Bakugou's head fell onto his shoulder fast asleep. He didn't know it at the moment back then, but that was the first time Bakugou had managed to fall asleep since he had been rescued. Kirishima stayed as quiet as possible, happy that his best friend was resting. He could always tell him later, it wasn't the time for such a revelation. Not when his best friend was dealing with so much. It just wasn't the right time. He would tell Bakugou how he felt later on when the moment was right. Time passes. The right moment never came. There was always something going on in their lives, something they had to deal with or handle. Before he knew it, Kirishima had let 10 years go by, but at least he still had his best friend by his side. The world had shifted when they found Akio, but that was now the main reason he feared Bakugou's reaction to his feelings. It wasn't very manly of him, but he was more than aware that he would have to say something, anything, sooner rather than later. Kirishima left work right on time, not wanting to waste any time before he lost his nerves and backed down once more. He was almost at his car when he heard Tetsu calling after him. "Hey, so am I meeting the kid or not?" Kirishima couldn't help but laugh. "You can come over and meet him whenever you like, bro." "Awesome, Kendo and I will be over tonight." "Wait, what? Bro, I can't tonight," Kirishima told him. He wasn't sure if he should reveal his reason for not wanting his best bro to visit. "Why not? Uraraka is already over at your place," Tetsu asked with a raised eyebrow. Kirishima could only blink. "Wait, what?" Tetsu took out his phone, tapping for a few seconds before turning his phone towards Kirishima. Sure enough, there was a picture of Akio with Uraraka posted just a couple minutes before. "Well, guess we are having people over," Kirishima said with a sigh. It was never the right moment. Time passes. Bakugou had been in a bit of a panic since he left the agency. He felt his face getting too hot every time he thought about Kirishima, or the way they had kissed, or that smile the redhead gave him afterward. It had taken a lot of focus to get back to the house without getting fucking lost. Kirishima had an effect on him that he couldn't deny, and it was just ridiculous that one fucking kiss, turned him into a fucking idiot. No matter how fucking amazing and perfect the kiss was, or how he wanted to explore that bare chest with his hands a bit more, or how much he wanted to do it again, but where nobody could possibly be watching them. God fucking damn it, he was just thinking about it again. Akio had fallen asleep shortly after they got home, the outing tiring him out. He was asleep on top of a blanket next to Bakugou on the sofa. He was holding on tightly to a fat gum plush the pro hero had given the gremlin. The kid may have already decided who his favorite pro was, and honestly, Bakugou found it a bit adorable. It was also not the worst choice out there. With his laptop on his lap, Bakugou started going over some more of the files that were recovered from the raid. Nothing stood out to him much. A lot of it seemed to be repeated information or trying to find ways to improve their process. There was a lot of information they needed that they weren't finding, and that was the most worrying part. The more time they spent trying to find information they needed, the more likely it was that the information was going to be useless once they had it. Bakugou sent a couple of his notes over to Deku, who had already sent him more notes of his own that were probably too long to even bother with at the moment. He had 1 more week of working from home before he could go back to his agency and he could get started on an actual plan to capture the villains. They owed Akio that much, making the people that had made him suffer pay for what they had done. His phone vibrated next to him, making his heart race. Could it be Kirishima? Fuck, he was getting ahead of himself once more. He reached for his phone and realized he had gotten flustered over nothing. Cheeks. I'm coming over. I found the cutest things for Akio. You're going to love it. Bakugou rolled his eyes before replying. Who the fuck said you could come over? He didn't get to put his phone down before he got a reply. Cheeks. First of all, you love having me around. You just won't admit it. Second of all, you can't stop me. I'm already a couple minutes away. Winky tongue face emoji. Bakugou. You're the fucking worst. Cheeks. Love you too. Bakugou. Kid is sleeping. You wake him up, I kill you. Cheeks. I would like to see you try. Time passes. Uraraka made an entrance that wasn't that different from Ashido's when she had come to meet Akio. Arms full of shopping bags, a wide grin on her face, and clear excitement as she let all the bags drop as soon as she was in the living room. He is so cute, she whisper yelled as she watched Akio sleep. No way he is your kid. Do you want to fucking go? Bakugou grumbled. I'm just joking, Uraraka told him with a dismissive wave. Oh, I always knew Kirishima and you would make the cutest kids. Bakugou blushed furiously at her words. Shut up! If only you would make a move already. Like you're one to talk. How are things going with glasses? Shut up, Uraraka huffed as she shoved Bakugou away playfully. You know I've made a move. He's just dense as fuck and keeps thinking you're being nice and keeps thinking it's supposed to be a group thing and invites everyone else on your dates. Bakugou chuckled. That happened once. Once! And you knew about it and you still showed up. Shut it. You're gonna make him wake up. Also, can you blame me? Had to see your reaction. Oh, sorry. She covered her mouth with her hands, but glared at Bakugou either way. They stood there in silence for a couple of seconds, comfortable with each other after so many years of friendship and training together. Uraraka was the first to break the silence. I think you two are doing something amazing. Bakugou raised an eyebrow at her as she rolled her eyes, already knowing he wanted her to clarify. You know that a lot of people wouldn't take in a baby so easily after finding out it was theirs. Even less likely if it was a... what word are we using? Clone? We aren't using that word. He isn't a clone, Bakugou said firmly. He is our son. No other way to put it. He's half of me and half of A. Don't you think that's just amazing? From all the pro heroes out there and all the different DNA combinations they could have used, they used you two. Bakugou hadn't thought about that. He had been too busy with everything going on, worried about what they had to do next and what they needed to get done. He hadn't stopped to think about how, Uraraka had the best word for it, amazing it was that he ended up having a kid with Kirishima of all people. It could have been anyone out there, any pair of heroes, but it was them. It wasn't random. He knew that from the files he had read about the experiments, they had chosen DNA that they believed would work well together to form strong quirks. Not only that, but taking into account a lot of health factors and other things to guarantee a healthy baby. They used other DNA as well. For the ones I'd rather not know. Uraraka stopped him. I can't think about what they were doing there. It's just... Bakugou nodded, not needing for her to finish. What the hell did you bring for the gremlin, round face? Uraraka smiled, her eyes thanking Bakugou for the change in subject. I got him some super adorable clothes. And don't worry, I got them in larger sizes than he needs. That way he can grow into some of them. Bakugou groaned but followed Uraraka as she went back to the shopping bags and started showing him what she had gotten. Most of it was the outfits she had gushed over on Twitter and other social media. Bakugou was a bit impressed that she had been able to find both All Might and Crimson Riot footy pajamas. Kirishima is going to love those, Bakugou said with a smile. You are so smitten, Uraraka teased. I hate you. Where is Kirishima anyway? Had to head back to work, Bakugou said with a shrug. Uraraka stared at him for a couple seconds before gasping. No way! You miss him! And it's only been, what, half a day? Bakugou just scowled, staring at the ground. No need for Uraraka to know he had gone to see Kirishima at work. He would never hear the end of it if she found out. Luckily, he didn't have to respond because Akio started stirring, letting out a whimper that signaled he was about to start crying. I'm here. Bakugou told him as he went over to pick him up. Akio wasted no time burying his face against Bakugou's chest. As he woke up, hands held tightly to his dad's shirt as he tried to shake the sleep away. He is so cute, Uraraka gushed as she moves closer, but still keeps a good distance between them. Hi, Akio. Akio turns to look at the person he doesn't know in the room. Eyes wide, and he holds tighter to Bakugou. Wrong move, cheeks. He's a bit grumpy right now, Bakugou explained. Like father, like son, Uraraka said with an understanding nod. You little... Kirishima used to be grumpy after naps at UA. It wasn't directed at you. But if the shoe fits... Bakugou glared at her, not completely convinced by her explanation. How are you even going to hold him? Wouldn't you just make him float? I brought gloves, Uraraka defended herself with a huff. At least she was planning ahead, Bakugou had to admit. Let him wake up fully and you can try to hold him. Think he needs a diaper change as well. Wait, I have something I think you're going to love, Uraraka exclaimed as she started looking through some of the bags they hadn't unpacked yet. Really? You want me to change his clothes now? Only because I think it's the best thing I got and I want you to actually see him in it, she explained before pulling out a onesie from one of the bags with a victorious grin. Got it. She held it up, showing it off to Bakugou. Bakugou blinks a couple of times before a grin spreads on his face. Yeah, he needs to try that one on. Time passes. Bakugou changed Akio, who was feeling a lot more awake by the time he was done. He started babbling at them, even letting Uraraka carry him and take pictures of both of them together. Do you mind if I post a pic of me and Akio on my socials? She asked as she turned her phone to show Bakugou the picture she wanted to post. It was a simple photo and nothing too different from what they had already shared with the world. Go ahead, but only one, got it? Yes, sir, Uraraka told him as she started tapping away on her phone. You honestly got the best features from both of your dads, Uraraka said to Akio as she posted the picture. You are so lucky. You could have ended up being half Mineta. If we think about it, that would have been a tragedy. Don't fucking traumatize my child like that, Bakugou shouted, almost gagging. Why would that even cross your mind? Well, they were using hero DNA, and even though we all hate to acknowledge it, Mineta is a hero. Uraraka chuckled. You're not allowed near my kid anymore. Give him over, Bakugou told her, taking Akio in his arm. So no joking about his origin, I guess, Uraraka laughed. You better not, Bakugou warned. You know, all jokes aside, Uraraka started, her tone serious. I think this is a good opportunity for you to tell Kirishima how you feel. I mean, wouldn't it be better for Akio if the two of you were actually together and not just pretending to be? Bakugou was silent for a while. Everything Uraraka said made sense, but he could never get past the guilt feeling that he would be tricking Kirishima into something he didn't want. He just didn't feel like talking about it. Not when he had been so happy a couple hours ago when Kirishima had kissed him and he thought that maybe, just maybe, there was something real behind it. Now, he wasn't so sure. I'll think about it, Bakugou grumbled instead. As if you haven't been thinking about it for years now, Uraraka mumbled. Time passes. Kirishima arrived back at the house, feeling nervous as he made his way inside. He had been planning to talk to Bakugou once he got home, but Uraraka was still there. It was evident from her car being parked out front. He needed to control himself, so he took a deep breath before making his way inside. I'm home, he called out as he walked in, taking off his shoes by the door. Welcome home, Bakugou called out. We're in the living room. Uraraka's still here? Kirishima asked. I'm here, she chirped happily. Kirishima couldn't help but smile at her reaction as he made his way into the living room. Where's my little pebble? He asked as Akio started shrieking happily at the sight of him. Kirishima walked over to Bakugou, picking up Akio in one fluid motion, placing a kiss on the baby's chubby cheeks, fighting the temptation to lean down and kiss Bakugou as well. He was about to say something when he suddenly spotted what Akio was wearing. Is this new? He asked with a laugh. Akio was wearing a light red onesie that read, My dads can beat you up. Uraraka laughed brightly. Don't you love it? I saw it and I knew it was made for him. This is amazing, thank you, Kirishima told her. Don't thank her. She brought us a whole closet full of clothes. Where are we supposed to put it all? Bakugou grumbled, but there was a small smile on his face. You liked them, don't try denying it. Uraraka argued back. Oh, cats, by the way, Tetsu and Kendo are coming over, Kirishima started. Tetsu saw Uraraka was over and he refuses to be the last one to meet Akio. Bakugou just hummed in acknowledgement. May as well have more people over now. It wasn't like they would have any alone time anytime soon. I beat Tetsu to meeting the baby? Uraraka exclaimed happily. Does that make me your best friend, Bakugou? No one fucking inviting you, Bakugou countered. Language, Kirishima told him in a warning tone. She was annoying me. Kirishima shook his head, sitting down next to Bakugou. Akio, tell your dad he needs to be nicer to his friends. Akio just babbled, reaching over to smack lightly against Bakugou's shoulder. Bakugou snorted. That's funny. You think she's my friend? More of a friend than you could ever have, Uraraka answered. A is my friend, Bakugou defended angrily. How do you put up with him? Uraraka asked the redhead. Kirishima smiled nervously, if not a bit shyly. He's not that bad. Bakugou turned to look at him with a raised eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Kirishima and Uraraka answered at the same time before they started laughing. They talked for a couple minutes, catching up on each other's lives and whatever else came to mind. Kirishima felt himself relax, his eyes lingering on Bakugou maybe a bit too much. Bakugou was showing Uraraka pictures of Akio from a couple days ago, telling her about the daycare situation when he spoke up suddenly. Do you guys have any pictures of all three of you together? Kirishima thought about it for a moment, meeting Bakugou's eyes as they both tried to remember if they had any pictures of them as a family. I don't think so, Kirishima told her honestly. Other than the ones that the paparazzi took for the tabloids, no, Bakugou admitted with a slight frown. Uraraka pulled out her phone. Do you want me to take one? I can send it to you two, and you guys can have it printed and hang it up on the wall if you want. Kirishima smiled at the idea before turning to Bakugou. It would be nice to have a picture of all of us. Bakugou nodded. Yeah, guess you're right. They positioned themselves as close as they could, Kirishima placing a hand on Bakugou's shoulder as the blonde held up Akio. Kirishima placed one of his hands on Akio, who held onto his hand. Their eyes met for a split split second before turning back to Uraraka. "Smile," she said, holding up one of Akio's toys so he would be looking in the right direction. She snapped a couple pictures, a bright smile on her face. "That is adorable. You three make a beautiful family." Kirishima felt Bakugou's shoulder tense up at those words before he pulled away from Kirishima. "Just send it over," Bakugou told her. Uraraka gave Bakugou a look that Kirishima didn't quite understand. He was about to ask if something was wrong, but was interrupted by the doorbell. I'll go get that," Kirishima told them as he stood up. Kirishima felt uneasy about Bakugou's reaction as he made his way to the front door. "Hey guys," Kirishima said with a smile. Kendo and Tetsu stood in front of him with a smile. "Thanks for having us over," Kendo said before Tetsu pushed his way past Kirishima. "Where's the little bro? I need to meet him before Itsuka does," Tetsu said as he made his way into the house. "He has been like this since he heard about Akio," Kendo explained with a sigh but a small smile on her lips. "Hope he gets this excited if we ever decide to have a kid of our own." "I'm sure he would be overjoyed," Kirishima told her as he led her towards the living room. He stopped short at what waited for them once they walked in. Bakugou was holding on to Akio, who was looking at Tetsu with wide and confused eyes, mouth open wide. "What's going on?" Kirishima asked with a bit of a chuckle. "I think the tin can broke our kid," Bakugou told him. Once Kirishima was within Akio's view, he looked even more confused. "Oh my, I think he's trying to figure out which one of you is his dad," Uraraka giggled. "What? No," Kirishima exclaimed. "He knows it's me." He reached out, picking up Akio and resting him against his hip. "Isn't that right, Pebble?" Akio stared at Kirishima for a bit. His eyes darted over to Tetsu, standing a couple feet away, before saying, "Da? Come here, little bro." Tetsu tried with outstretched arms, only for Akio to lean towards him. "I feel betrayed," Kirishima gasped as Tetsu took Akio without hesitance from the baby. "Remember when everyone used to compare you two, and you two would both say that you weren't that similar?" Kendo told them as she tried to hold back a laugh. "There's your proof that everyone was right." "Come on, Akio," Kirishima pouted. "I'm the one that changes your diapers." He reached out to Akio, who went to him immediately just to look at Tetsu, his eyes filling up with tears. "Give me my kid. You guys are making him so confused," Bakugou said, getting up and taking Akio, who curled against him. "Wonder if he would have had the same reaction if he had seen me at the agency today when you guys came around," Tetsu wondered aloud. "Wait, hold up," Uraraka spoke up. "You went to visit Kirishima at work today?" She smiled widely at Bakugou. "Yeah, he didn't tell you? The whole agency was talking about it, especially since these two kissed outside before Bakugou left," Tetsu said with a shrug. "Oh, really?" Uraraka exclaimed, eyes on Bakugou. Kirishima didn't understand what was going on, but Bakugou's face was turning red as he glared openly at Uraraka. "It was only because we have to act like a couple, round face," he told her. Kirishima felt his heart sink. Right, of course. That's all it was for Bakugou, after all. Time passes. Akio learned to tell Kirishima and Tetsu apart quickly, but that didn't stop everyone from making jokes about it for the rest of the evening. It went by rather quickly, Uraraka having to head out due to an early morning shift. Tetsu and Kendo didn't stay much longer after she left, but promising to stop by again soon. Once they were alone once more, Bakugou didn't know what to say to Kirishima. He had so much he wanted to say once the redhead got home, but now it all seemed stuck in the back of his throat. "Let's get Akio ready for bed," he said instead, making his way towards the nursery. Kirishima just nodded, following behind him, with Akio in his arms, which made Bakugou nervous. Kirishima was never this quiet unless something was bothering him. "Hey, Katsuki?" Kirishima spoke up suddenly while Bakugou tried to pick out pajamas for Akio. Yeah, Bakugou responded, hoping it didn't sound as nervous as he felt. Did I overstep today when I kissed you? Kirishima's voice sounded so quiet. Bakugou turned around to look at his best friend. The redhead's eyes were glued to the floor, as if he were a chastened puppy. Bakugou rushed forward towards Kirishima, a hand on his arm. Red, what makes you think that? You seemed uncomfortable when Tatsu mentioned it in front of Uraraka and Kendo, so I thought... Bakugou felt the blood drain from his face. He had been annoyed about Uraraka knowing about it because she was going to tease him about it mercilessly, not because he hadn't liked the kiss. It's not because of that, Bakugou assured him, trying to get away with saying as little as possible. Then you aren't mad at me? Did I make you uncomfortable? Kirishima asked, eyes worried and a bit panicked. Bakugou couldn't help it. He reached out, a hand cupping Kirishima's face. You, more than anyone, knows that I don't do anything I don't want to, eh? He said softly. You did nothing wrong. Kirishima looked at Bakugou for a bit, leaning into the touch before letting out a sigh. All right, but you would tell me, right? If anything was bothering you? Of course I would, Bakugou assured him. You are the one person I talk to about everything. He couldn't help the small smile on his lips, even though he felt a bit of guilt at his words. Maybe he should just say it now, get it all out in the open, now that their faces were so close to one another, that all he had to do was pull Kirishima's face closer, just a bit. Akio started fussing, jumping up and down in Kirishima's arms as if he wanted to get moving, pulling both of his dads out of the trance they were in. Bakugou pulled his hand away. Let's get him ready for bed. Yeah, let's do that, Kirishima said with a nod, his eyes lingering on Bakugou. Bakugou was so tempted, but the moment was over. He would just have to wait for another one. After all, he had already waited years. What were a couple more days in that perspective? Friends, before I continue on to the next chapter, I do want to say if you're following along with the actual fan fiction, this one does have a piece of fan art that's in this one. So yeah, you should definitely go and check it out. It is a picture of their family photo that someone drew. Chapter 14. Stay calm. Bakugou woke up early the next morning, the sound of Kirishima getting ready for work, waking him up earlier than planned on a Saturday morning. He didn't get up right away, enjoying the muffled sounds that Kirishima was making as he moved around the house, their home. Akio was awake as well. He could hear Kirishima talking to the baby, even asking him to be quiet a couple times to not wake him. Bakugou couldn't help but smile. Getting up from the bed, Kirishima would leave soon, and Akio needed him to be up with him. He stayed quiet as he made his way through the house. He could hear Kirishima explain to Akio why he had to leave, making it hard for him not to laugh. I'm a hero, and I need to make sure everyone is safe and following the law. It's very manly, and your dad is a hero too. My hero name is Red Riot, and your dad's... Well, it's really long, but most people just call him Dynamite, Kirishima explained. Bakugou could see the two in the kitchen now, hiding behind a corner as he watched Kirishima make a bottle for Akio, who was chewing on one of his teething toys. I'm just 6 in the rankings, but your dad, he's number 2 in the whole country, Kirishima said with fondness in his voice that made Bakugou's heart skip a beat. He would be number 1 if it weren't for the fact that some people find him rude, Kirishima reassured Akio. They just don't understand that he's just straightforward. It's really manly. Bakugou couldn't move, feeling a bit choked up at hearing Kirishima's words. He felt like he had done something wrong overhearing the conversation between the man he had been in love with for years and their child. Just thinking about it like that felt so fucking stupid. He was in love with his best friend, but instead of taking a fucking chance, he was hiding behind a wall while his best friend talked to their child. Their child. Bakugou couldn't help but feel frustrated at the whole situation. There was so much that already made them a couple, a family, and yet he was unable to say the words he needed to say. Akio, stop throwing your teething toy, Kirishima warned, pulling Bakugou back from his thoughts. Bakugou waited a couple seconds before walking into the kitchen. Morning, he mumbled. Good morning, cats. Kirishima smiled brightly. Great timing. I need to head out. I have morning patrol with some of the interns. Bakugou nodded. All right, have a good day. Kirishima smiled, giving Bakugou a nod before leaning down to kiss Akio's cheek. I'll see you two this evening. Kick butt out there, Red, Bakugou told him with a grin. Glad he caught himself so Kirishima wouldn't chastise him for his language once more. Will do, Kirishima told him, bumping his fists against each other as he headed out. Bakugou looked after him, but didn't look away when he heard the door closing. Well, you got a nice little lecture from your dad today, Bakugou told Akio, who was busy with his bottle. Akio just looked at him with wide eyes. All right, let's get started with what we have to do today. Time passes. Kirishima had a mostly quiet day on patrol. There were a couple petty criminals his interns handled on their own for the most part, and after that, it was mostly supervising, training, and finishing even more paperwork. That's when he saw the paperwork for Akio's case. Since it had been officially approved by Fandom, he now had an official request for his participation. It was all for legal purposes, but also to make sure there were no loose ends that could be used against them. He read over the material, all the info in the documents he was already familiar with. If anything, it was very limited compared to what he knew they had. Akio was not mentioned by name. He was just referred to as the victim or the child. It made Kirishima's stomach twist uncomfortably at how they referred to his son, but he understood why they did. He read the rest of the documents before signing them with a sigh. Once Bakugou went back to work, they would start working on the case full force once more. It was just a matter of days, and he needed to start making a plan for then. Kirishima's phone vibrated, the screen lighting up to announce a text from Bakugou. Kirishima couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, suddenly anxious about something being wrong back home. He unlocked his phone just to be greeted with an image of Akio with his new fat gum plush. Cats. Your son screamed as if he was being attacked when I tried to take it away. He refused to let go of it even though he needs a bath. Kirishima couldn't help but smile at the picture. Akio looked so content. His smile made it seem like he knew exactly what he was getting away with. Kirishima, I'm showing Fat this. He is going to be so happy about it. Cats, if I can't get the gremlin to have a bath, I'm blaming him and he's going to pay. Kirishima, you're just jealous because Akio seems to have a favorite hero and it's not you. Laughing, crying face emojis. Bakugou, I just want him to be clean. Kirishima couldn't help but laugh. He knew exactly what type of frown Bakugou was making at the fact that Akio was showing a bit of rebellion. If anything, Bakugou was probably more upset that he wasn't mad at Akio for this. It was obvious by the fact that Bakugou hadn't just let Akio cry for his toy to give him a bath. Kirishima would tease Bakugou about going soft if it weren't for the fact that Bakugou would probably take that as a challenge. Kirishima couldn't help but smile as he forwarded the picture to Fandom and let him know the story behind it. He couldn't wait to go home to the two people he loved the most. Time passes. Deku, I have more notes on some of the research we found. Bakugou, what the fuck? I haven't even finished the ones you sent from yesterday. Bakugou, can you give me a condensed version? Deku, all right. Deku, so bad news. We still don't know where the villains are, but I have been able to greatly diminish the search area due to the fact that they seem to not be able to travel great distances with infants without drawing suspicion. Also, the fact that they need very sophisticated machinery and it would be impractical for them to be too far from them if needed. Most of the machinery we found, but some of it was still unaccounted for, which means they had to be nearby to be practical. Not only that, I mapped out the location of the hideout and compared it to the distance of the homes of those villains we apprehended during the raid. The longest commute time was just under an hour, so I'm guessing it's the same or at least very similar setup to any other hideouts that they may have. Bakugou, for fuck's sakes, I said condense, you shitty nerd. Deku, does that mean you don't want to know about the new files the HC was able to pull off the computers that got confiscated? Bakugou, send them over. Deku, wait. Quick question. How is it going with Kirishima? Bakugou, what do you mean, how is it going? Deku, ... Deku, oh, you're playing dumb. Bakugou, remember the days when you used to be scared of me? Maybe we should go back to that. Deku, as if you could take me now. Bakugou, I will blow you away with an explosion so big your stupid-ass boyfriend will need to freeze you with his quirk to keep you from falling into fucking pieces. Deku, oh. Deku, well, at least I had the guts to ask out the man I love. Bakugou, you're dead, on sight, when I see you. Deku, wonder if Kirishima will be able to handle being a single parent. Bakugou, middle finger emojis. Deku, I'll contact you when I have info. Bakugou, going back to the agency next week, already working on a plan. Deku, for the villains or to ask out Kirishima? Bakugou, you have a fucking death wish, I fucking swear. Time passes. A couple months earlier, Bakugou was on patrol around the city. It had been a quiet day, so when the call for heroes near downtown to go into action came, it surprised him, to say the least. He wasted no time responding, heading towards the action at full speed while letting them know he was on his way. It wasn't a villain attack that had called so many heroes to respond. It had been a building falling, a residential one at that. Every hero in the area was called in to help rescue the people inside, and others to try to stop the building from falling before everyone was out. Bakugou was part of the first group, quickly making his way inside the building, yelling at the civilians to head towards the exits, helping those that were trapped or were unable to move fast enough on their own. He spotted Deku somewhere along the 7th floor, and with a couple words of acknowledgement, they started working together to clear people out. Clearing 2 floors in under 5 minutes, Deku used his speed to check every room, while Bakugou made sure to destroy any obstacles that could slow down the evacuation. It was on the top floor where it got a bit complicated. They found a couple of boys huddled together, scared. Couldn't have been more than 8 and 6. Bakugou was the one who found them, and they had just been told that the building was about to collapse on itself. Deku, you grab the one, I'll grab the other, Bakugou yelled. Deku nodded, extending a hand to the kids with a smile. I'm here. We're here to help you. One of the boys, the oldest, nodded. My brother is scared. The younger boy wouldn't pull away from his brother. He sobbed heavily, but it would be impossible to maneuver in the air carrying both of them. Come on, kid, Bakugou told him. We need to get you out. No, the boy yelled. The floor was shaking under them, and Bakugou knew they had little to no time. So he did something he was sure wouldn't win the boy's favor, but the only solution that he had. Deku, grab the other one, he said as he pulled the younger one away. The boy screamed and kicked, but Bakugou didn't let him go as he headed for the window. From the corner of his eye, he saw Deku grabbing the other boy and following at his heels. A few seconds later, they were both jumping out of windows, each one of them with a kid in their arms. Bakugou felt the kid's arms wrapping around him tightly, and that was enough for him to move a bit more freely as he tried to soften their fall with a couple of explosions. It was mid-air when he felt it. It was a bit like a shock right on his neck where the kid was holding him. It made him flinch slightly, but it didn't make him lose focus. They landed safely, and he felt Deku landing a couple of feet away. But when Bakugou turned around, it wasn't Deku that was standing there. It was Kirishima. "What the hell? I didn't know you were here, Red. Where the fuck did Deku go?" he asked, looking around, wanting nothing more than to reunite the kid with his brother. That's when he realized everyone around him, every single person, looked like Kirishima. "Kachan?" The Kirishima standing in front of him questioned. "What do you mean? Kirishima isn't here." Fuck. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. "What the fuck is going on?" he mumbled as he ran a hand through his hair, looking around in a bit of a panic. The tiny Kirishima, the Dekushima, was carrying, gasped as he ran over to the boy Bakugou had been carrying, now also looking like his best friend. "What the fuck?" Bakugou said once more, closing his eyes and opening them once more. "I'm so sorry, Dynamite, sir," the older boy said as he rushed forward towards his brother. It was hard to focus when he looked like a small version of the redhead hero Bakugou was so familiar with. "My brother's quirk. He isn't very good at controlling it yet. He makes people see others as the person they love the most," the boy explained as he pulled his brother close to him. "It only lasts a couple of minutes, though," the boy assured him. Yet Bakugou knew the damage was done when he turned to look at the Kirishima that was supposed to be Deku and saw the realization in his eyes. Fuck. Time passes. Kirishima arrived home that evening, finding Bakugou at the kitchen table, his laptop in front of him, and papers scattered around him with Akio in his arms as he fed him a bottle. Kirishima couldn't help but smile as he walked into the kitchen. He could smell the dinner Bakugou had made for them, and it made his heart ache at how domestic it all was. But it was far from that in so many ways. "Well, if it isn't my two favorite people," Kirishima used as a greeting as he walked in with a wide smile. "Hey, Bakugou told him, but his eyes never left the computer. "I'm just finishing reading some more of the files we got," he explained, finally turning to look at Kirishima with a hint of a smile. "Dinner is ready, by the way." "Thanks, Cats," Kirishima told him. "How was your day?" "The gremlin let go of Fat Gum long enough to take a bath, and after that, he's been a bit fussy, but I think he's just tired," Bakugou said with an eye roll. "I'm sure that the little pebble wasn't that much of a problem," Kirishima teased. "At least not for a pro like you." "Of course he wasn't," Bakugou scoffed. "How was work?" "Finally got the official paperwork for Akio's case. Guess that means we can start moving," Kirishima told Bakugou as he started serving 2 plates of food. The redhead's mouth started to water at the rice and curry Bakugou had made. He made sure to put Bakugou's curry on the side of the rice like the blonde liked. His own plate had curry on top of the rice, which helped combat the spiciness of Bakugou's cooking. "That's great," Bakugou told him as he sat Akio on his high chair and started picking up some of his papers to give them space to eat. "Fat Gum printed out the picture you sent of Akio and put it on his desk, by the way. Think he is already planning for Akio to intern with him," Kirishima told him with a chuckle as he set their plates down. "Wow, he has a picture of our kid at his desk before us. I feel like we're slacking now," Bakugou chuckled as well. "Well, not entirely true," Kirishima smiled shyly. "You have a picture of Akio on your desk?" Bakugou asked, sitting at the table with his food in front of him, Kirishima sitting next to him with his own. Kirishima nodded and took a bite of his food, not wanting to admit that the picture was the one Uraraka had taken of them the day before, the one that made them look like an actual family. He had gone out during his lunch to buy a frame for it and placed it on his desk. "The hell? I'm going to have to get a shit ton of pictures then," Bakugou mumbled. "Cats, language," Kirishima sighed. I bet you curse all the time in front of Akio when I'm not around. And if I do, you can't prove it, Bakugou smirked. I'm taking Riot out for a walk later, Kirishima announced, deciding to ignore Bakugou's obvious bait. Do you want to come with? It would be good for Akio to get out of the house. Sure, Bakugou said without hesitation before taking a bite of his food. Kirishima smiled. Even if they weren't a real family, he could pretend in moments like this, and that was enough for now. As they ate together as a family making plans for the evening, that was enough. Time passes. That night, Bakugou woke up to the sound of crying. It wasn't like the crying he was used to hearing in the middle of the night from Akio. It sounded as if the gremlin was in actual pain, and not just hungry or soiled. He stood up quickly, running into the nursery to find Kirishima was already there with Akio in his arms, but something was wrong for sure. What's going on? Bakugou asked, stepping forward, a hand going to Akio's tear-stained cheeks. He was burning up. I don't know, Kirishima answered. He feels hot, and he looks flushed. He's definitely burning up, Bakugou tells him, placing the back of his hand on Akio's forehead. Get him into a warm bath. It should help lower his temperature. Bakugou tells Kirishima, I'll get the thermometer. Got it, Kirishima responds, already heading towards the bathroom. Bakugou took a shaky breath, unsure of what to do, unsure of what was going on, trying to keep himself in control of the situation. Was Akio sick? Was it normal sick, or was this something else? Something related to how he was created? Some of the reports he had read outline how some of the infants got sick right before they... No, he couldn't think about that. Not now. He rushed out of the nursery towards the bathroom where Kirishima was already undressing Akio as the water filled the baby tub. We need to check his temperature, Bakugou said, mostly to remind himself to move. He needed to keep moving. He needed to do something. So many years as a pro hero, and he'd never felt this much panic before. He found the thermometer, which he had gotten along with the other baby medical supplies just in case, placing it against Akio's forehead. Akio tried to move away, still crying his eyes out with heartbreaking sobs. It's okay, Pebble. You're going to be all right, Kirishima assured the baby as the thermometer beeped. 40 degrees Celsius. He has a fever, a very high one, Bakugou announced. Let's get him into the bath. Try to lower it a bit, Kirishima said as he started lowering Akio into the water. Akio only cried louder, kicking and twisting, making the water splash around them. Come on, Akio, you're going to feel better after this, Kirishima reassured him. We need to get him to a hospital. We need to make sure he isn't... Katsuki, Kirishima said firmly, pulling Bakugou's attention towards him. He'll be okay. We will try to get his temperature down a bit, then we can take him to the hospital if we need to, okay? Bakugou nodded, feeling a bit more grounded thanks to his best friend. Akio let out another wail, followed by a short sob. You're okay, love, Bakugou found himself saying. We got you, Akio. Time passes. The bath lowered Akio's temperature, but it was still too high. Way too high. Kirishima grabbed his car keys and the diaper bag as Bakugou finished dressing Akio. It was close to 3 a.m., which meant they needed to go to the nearest emergency room. Let's get going, Kirishima told Bakugou as he ushered him towards the door. His free hand finds its way to the small of Bakugou's back. The blonde had been freaking out in a way Kirishima had never seen before. He wanted to freak out as well, but he had to remain calm. He had to, for both Akio and Bakugou. Bakugou buckled Akio into his car seat before climbing into the back seat to keep an eye on the baby on the way to the hospital. Kirishima climbed into the driver's seat, looking into the rearview mirror at his two passengers. Are you ready? He asked. Yes, let's go already, Bakugou told him, his hand against Akio's forehead once more. He's going to be all right, Katz, Kirishima assured the blonde as he started driving down the street. Bakugou nodded, but his eyes were still uneasy. Let's just get him some help. The drive was far from quiet as Akio continued to cry the whole way. Bakugou tried to soothe him, but nothing seemed to work. Kirishima did his best to keep his focus on the road, but turned to check on the two people he loved most in the world every time they stopped at a red light. The 7-minute ride to the hospital felt much longer than that, but they arrived with a sigh of relief. Kirishima didn't bother finding parking, driving up to the front of the hospital instead. If he got a ticket for it, so be it. He put the car in park and got out, opening Akio's door and unbuckling him while Bakugou got out of the car. "It's all right, little man. You're going to be okay," he told Akio, but he had to bite down a wince as he felt how hot Akio's skin was. "Let's go," Bakugou said as he headed towards the hospital door with the diaper bag swung over his shoulder as he held open the door for Kirishima. The hospital's quiet atmosphere was broken by Akio's crying as Bakugou and Kirishima made their way to the front desk. The nurse there looked at them with wide eyes. Kirishima was sure she recognized them but didn't say a word. She shook her head as if trying to regain focus and picked up a clipboard from the nurse's station she was sitting at. "What's going on?" the nurse asks as a greeting, standing up in case she needed to jump into action right away. "Our son has a fever," Kirishima explained. The nurse started asking routine questions, and Kirishima answered every single one of them in a rapid succession. "His name is Kirishima Akio. He is 9 months old. His birthday is November 10th. Kirishima hoped he remembered that one correctly. Yes, the fever had been persistent for a while and had reached a high of 40 degrees Celsius. No, they weren't sure if there were any other symptoms. No, he hadn't stopped crying since he woke up. Yes, they had tried to give him fluids, but Akio had refused. Question after question, each one making Kirishima more impatient until finally the nurse told them to follow her towards one of the examination rooms, telling them that the pediatrician on call would be with them as soon as possible. "It's all right. Everything will be all right," Kirishima told Bakugou, who started pacing around the room nervously with Akio in his arms. Bakugou's eyes were full of tears, and Kirishima knew that his best friend was feeling helpless and useless all at the same time. "The other babies, the ones that were in that horrible place. Some of them got sick right before." "Katsuki," Kirishima said, going to stand in Bakugou's way. "Look at me, please." Kirishima lifted his hand to Bakugou's cheek, making the blonde freeze. Akio was still crying, but not as loudly, his face buried into Bakugou's chest. "He is going to be all right. All kids get sick," Kirishima said, his thumb brushing off a tear from Bakugou's face. "He has something the others didn't. He has you." "But..." "No but. I know you, Bakugou Katsuki. If Akio is truly sick, you will stop at nothing to make him better." Kirishima placed his other hand on Akio's head. "He is the luckiest kid because he has you as a dad." Bakugou stared at Kirishima, eyes wide. The redhead couldn't look away. The door of the room was opened suddenly. "Hello, I'm Dr. Akita. I'm the pediatrician on call tonight," the older man said with a smile as he walked into the room. "I hear we have a little one who's feeling under the weather tonight." Yes, Bakugou said, stepping away from Kirishima with a slight blush. "He has a fever that won't go down." "Alrighty then, let's examine him. Please set him down on the examination table," Dr. Akita instructed. Bakugou nodded, setting Akio down and taking a couple steps back to give the doctor some space to work. Kirishima didn't hesitate. He took a couple of steps until he stood right behind Bakugou and wrapped his arms around him. Bakugou took a sharp inhale but leaned back into Kirishima without a word. The redhead lowered his head onto the blonde's shoulder, arms tightening slightly around his best friend's slim waist. "You okay?" Kirishima asked him, his eyes focused on Akio, who was being examined. Bakugou nodded, his hands finding their way on top of Kirishima's own.
Yeah, thank you, eh?
Anytime, cats. Time passes. Akio had a viral infection. Dr. Akita assured them that it was very common for his age. They would give him some antibiotics, put him on an IV drip to make sure the fever and all the crying didn't dehydrate him too much. Bakugou and Kirishima thanked the doctor numerous times, even more when he offered them a more private room for Akio to get treatment in. That's how they found themselves inside a hospital room with Akio finally asleep once more in a hospital crib with an IV inserted into his hand. Bakugou felt like he could finally breathe once more. Kirishima had been right. Everything was going to be okay. They stood over the crib, watching as their son slept.
You should get some sleep, eh?
Bakugou spoke up, breaking the calm silence that had fallen over them.
You still have work in a couple hours.
Kirishima shook his head. I already contacted Fat. I go in at noon now. That is, if we can get Akio home by then. Bakugou let out a sigh of relief. It was clearer now than ever that he needed Kirishima around to keep him calm. Kirishima didn't miss his reaction to the news. I'm not going to leave you alone, Kirishima promised his best friend. Neither of you, for that matter. Bakugou couldn't help but smile.
Thanks. Also for what you said to me earlier. It helped.
And I meant every word.
Akio is luckier to have you than he does me.
Bakugou told Kirishima, their eyes meeting. There was something in Kirishima's eyes he couldn't quite read. It was between disbelief and flattered.
You are such an amazing father.
Cats, Kirishima half gasped.
I wouldn't be able to do this with anyone else,
Bakugou confessed. It was then that Bakugou realized how close they were. Their arms brushed against one another. Neither was able to break the other's gaze. It was like a magnet, or maybe that wasn't a strong enough word to describe the force that pulled both of them close to one another. Bakugou's eyes finally looked away from Kirishima's, only to land on his lips. Just a heartbeat before he closed his eyes and all the distance between them was gone. This was different, so different from the other times they had kissed. For starters, they didn't have an audience. There was no reason for them to do this other than want and need. Also, Kirishima was kissing him so gently, so softly, it made Bakugou's head spin. It was as if Kirishima was scared of breaking the moment, and if Bakugou was completely honest, so was he as he slowly raised a hand to Kirishima's cheek, making the redhead turn just enough to be more face-to-face with each other. Bakugou felt his best friend's hands make their way from his mid-back to his waist, then to his hips, pulling him closer as gently as possible as he continued to kiss the blonde, as if scared that he would be pushed away at any second. The thought that Kirishima would think that Bakugou didn't want this, when in fact he needed it, gave him the confidence to wrap his arms around his best friend's neck, just to let him know he didn't want to stop anytime soon. A low whimper escaped Kirishima's lips, which Bakugou answered with a soft hum in reply. They didn't pull apart until the need for air became too much. Bakugou's heart was beating rapidly, and his breathing was heavy. Kirishima wasn't much better off, but was smiling brightly, that smile that made Bakugou's breath hitch. Bakugou knew he was blushing for sure, their eyes taking each other in as they both waited for the other to break the silence that filled the room. One of Kirishima's hands raced to cup Bakugou's face, and Bakugou leaned into the touch with a sigh before turning to kiss the palm of the redhead's hand, drawing a sharp breath from him. Katsuki, Kirishima said softly.
Eijirou,
Bakugou replied in the same tone. Does this mean, he trailed off once more, does this mean what I'm hoping it does? Bakugou didn't know how to reply. He was usually so good at reading what Kirishima was thinking, but his brain was fried from the kiss. He also didn't dare to assume. Not when it was something this important.
Which is,
Bakugou asked, still sounding breathless, that we could be a real family. That is, that this, he gestured between them, can be more than a publicity stunt, can more than a game of pretend.
Is that what you want, Red?
Bakugou said in disbelief of what he was hearing. It was all too good to be true. More than anything, Kirishima said with no hesitation, making Bakugou's breath hitch. Bakugou couldn't help himself. He pulled Kirishima down towards him once more, making the redhead let out a small sound of surprise that Bakugou swallowed as he tried to memorize what Kirishima tasted like. How natural it felt to be so close to his best friend.
I do too,
Bakugou confessed against Kirishima's lips.
I want this, us, to be more.
Bakugou could feel Kirishima's wide smile against his lips before pulling away slightly. Maybe we should talk about this a bit more, Kirishima whispered against Bakugou's temple before placing a kiss there. Bakugou's hand found its way into Kirishima's hair, which was a bit of a tangled mess from sleep that had been interrupted.
Once we get home,
Kirishima agreed. Time passes. Kirishima felt like he was dreaming. His head was still fuzzy from kissing Bakugou. His heart had not calmed down since. And now he sat in Akio's hospital room next to Bakugou, holding hands. Bakugou's head rested against his shoulder as they waited for the doctor to come back to let them know they could head home. Home. The word made his stomach flutter at the thought. They had already agreed to talk about whatever came next for them, for their family, once they got home. It was a bit nerve-wracking. Part of him feared that Bakugou would change his mind then, but those thoughts kept getting pushed away every time Bakugou moved closer to him. They completely disappeared when Bakugou lifted their joined hands to kiss his knuckles, making Kirishima admit to himself that this was real, even if it all seemed too good to be true.
Do you think Akio will feel better by the time he's supposed to start daycare?
Bakugou asked in a half mumble. We would need to ask the doctor about that. Wouldn't want the pebble to feel sick on his first day, Kirishima responded with a hum.
They probably wouldn't even let him stay,
Bakugou added. You know, both your parents or my mom's would be more than happy to babysit if we needed them to, Kirishima pointed out. Bakugou seemed to consider it for a moment, eyebrows knitting together as he debated an option internally. Just in case he can't go to daycare, of course, Kirishima added with a shrug.
I know it's a good option, Bakugou started, but with the villain still out there, it's still too much of a risk. At least the daycare, it was opened with hero parents in mind. They have top security. It just seems safer for now.
You have a really good point, babe, Kirishima hummed, suddenly freezing as he realized what he had just said.
So, I'm babe now?
Bakugou chuckled with a wicked grin that made Kirishima's mouth dry. If you want to be, Kirishima said with a nervous smile. Sorry, it wasn't very manly of me to let that slip, especially since I don't even know if you like pet names and...
If it's from you, Bakugou interrupted. I don't think I mind.
Bakugou looked away at his confession, but Kirishima could still see how red his ears were. Kirishima smiled, unable to stop, since somehow, by sheer luck and maybe a miracle, everything he ever wanted, and even what he thought he would never experience, seemed to be falling into place. All right, friends, thank you so much. I hope you loved this chapter. We're not fake dating anymore. It's for real. It makes me so happy. I love this chapter so much because they are finally gotten over themselves and they've figured their lives out. And I just love that for them. All right, friends, I know that this piece was a really long one, but I've been sticking with the 2 chapters together, so that's what we're going to keep doing. So I hope that you will come back and join me again next time for chapters 15 and 16.
Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.